One of the most asked questions in our industry, especially when you're starting out and getting into film, is which gear should I buy? And so often people will say it doesn't matter which gear you should buy. If you have an iPhone, you can shoot videos. If you have this, you can do that. And so often that is hard to believe because you're like, I have an iPhone, but it doesn't give me the quality that that video has, that YouTuber has. You go out and you buy the most expensive camera that you can afford, but still it doesn't give you the results that you require or desire. And I've been on that rabbit hole. I remember one time I was watching Ali Abdal before I knew much about videography, and I was like, what camera does he use? He uses the A7S3, I think. I was like, oh, I should get that one and I'll get the quality of results that he gets. And you soon buy it and you realize that's not how it works, because if you're constantly trying to be like somebody, if you're constantly trying to achieve the look that somebody else gets, there's a lot that goes into it. There's a lot of factors that go into achieving a look that video creates, right? Because cameras are just data capturers and they're capturing data around them. Now, given different lenses mean different type of quality of capturing, but cameras are essentially just capturing data. So if you don't have the quality data that one person has, and this data is then affected by many different factors, right? Like location. So if someone lives in a high rise in the UK where the sun is coming down, and you live in Canada where it's in Vancouver where it's overcast most of the time, you're gonna have different types of data being captured by the camera that's being processed. And more than that, it's what we need to think about is, what are you trying to say? What are you trying to do? What are you trying to create? You know? And there are people who often say it doesn't matter the gear that you have, it's about the story. The truth is, gear matters. There's a reason gear exists at different price ranges, right? It's not it's not that it's unethical or anything like that. It's more of, it costs money to create for the engineers and for these businesses to make a business. And that's why cameras like the Ari are expensive, because they deliver quality results beyond imagination. Now, prosumer cameras have gotten up there and create a certain amount of quality, but at the end of the day, a $5,000 camera vis-a-vis an $80,000 camera, those are two different animals. They're two different types of computers, and you have to think about that. Like, a camera is essentially a computer with a sensor that captures light. So whether you have a MacBook Air versus if you have a MacBook Pro, there's hardware differences. There's a lot of differences that go into that. So just to say story matters more, yes, you can have a very beautiful story, but if it's captured in an ugly way, very few people will be interested in watching that. And there's very little that you can do in terms of post production, right? Like nowadays, there's a lot of CGI that's involved. There's a lot of this, and these things require different types of data, to be captured. Especially like if you want to color grade and stuff like that, the compression rate on your videos really matters. So gear does matter, but gear should not be a reason that you don't do something. Just because you don't have doesn't mean you don't do it. You can still do it. It just means you're doing it limited. And I feel like for me, as I progress from a career perspective, limitations help, limitations assist, because by being limited, you're forced to work within a certain limit bracket, and that focuses your mind. Whereas if you have access to everything, then that almost leads you in a directionless way. Because imagine that if you are starting out and you're $100 million and you're going to buy an Ari Alexa to make a YouTube video, it will be a great video, but it's such a waste. Like, you could have done something else and you'll be lost, because there's a lot of decisions that you have to make, and that's what comes with living out of the brackets. Like, you would hear that of movies that have $100 million budgets and think, wow, 100 million, but that's not much. That's also very limiting, and what is enough, you never know, because money essentially buys you anything and almost everything. So I made this video. I'm not trying to make it being gear doesn't matter or gear matters. I feel like you need to introspect and have an understanding of self, and think about what matters to you. What are you trying to achieve, and how can you do that? I like using the Sony FX3 because one, it was the camera that I could afford. It was the camera that made sense for me at this prosumer level. Some people love the Black Magic cameras. I've just never been a fan. And that is primarily just from their marketing. They never really got me into it. Like when I see the camera body, it doesn't attract me. And one thing that I learned from marketing was there's an audience for everything, and that is so if you like, oh, I like what he does, then you have to have an understanding of what creates that. And now we live in the age of influencers. The essence of influencer is people are there to influence your decisions. But the problem is they shouldn't be able to do that. They should give you, like, every YouTuber who's making a video shouldn't influence your decision. They should give you information so that you make a decision. You should think through what each person is saying and your circumstances and what are you trying to achieve. I spend a long time buying things that I don't need, just trying to be like somebody. And I think that is the power of influence. That is the power of influencers. They have it above us. You see someone with 2 million subscribers making millions of views, and you want to be like that person because that means something to your life. But I think for me, and I'd advise people, like, it's time to turn around and go back to a time whereby art was about expression. Art was about that. And I do understand there is the business side to it, but in going back to making art and making all these videos about expression, you separate yourself. I find myself in an industry that's super saturated. Everybody with a camera, everybody wants to be a cinematographer. Everybody can be, but it's hard. It's difficult because at the end of the day, it's about impressing somebody to pick you, so that they want to work with you. And I think all that comes from what are you trying to say? What are you trying to do? You know, what artistry comes from you. And I think for me, moving forward, that's something that I'm going back to in trying to find my voice, because I feel like my voice has been lost in trying to play the game with the algorithms and trying to play the games of making money and trying to play the games of impressing people. The quickest thing that has happened is I've forgotten my own voice, and it's about finding that voice. It's about becoming who I am, being myself, self-expression and stuff like that, and not trying to cater to the world, because the world doesn't care about me. The world, people, myself included, we only care about ourselves and those we love. And yeah, I'm compassionate and I'm empathetic, but I have no desire to see, or how much influence I have on the next person. That doesn't really mean much to me. I appreciate the views, but how these videos then affect somebody, it's not really top of my priority. So if someone says, hey, I went and bought out the Sony FX3 because of you, that doesn't mean much to me, because I don't get anything out of it. I'm happy you're using the same camera I use, but will it give you the results you're seeking? I don't know. Is it the best thing for you? I don't know. And I fear and worry that we live in a world now where we are over influenced and we are not making decisions for ourselves and thinking about ourselves in terms of what actually am I trying to do? What am I trying to say?